John, let's talk about another episode of Unqualified Advice. Now, if you're new to the channel, right, I haven't done one of these things in a while, but if you're new, these videos are pretty much me giving advice on certain things on YouTube from the beginnings of YouTube, the hardships, the problems, style, whatever it may be. Just giving my unqualified advice. The advice that I pretty much give is not necessarily something that is just some world-class expert advice. It's just somebody that's also in the trenches that has had some success and telling you how it really is on YouTube for the most part, because you're not going to get straight answers from Jeremy Jahns and Chris Stuckman and PewDiePie or whatever it may be, because they're going to give you the same bullshit answers that is pretty much just like, be yourself, which is kind of complete bullshit when you really look at YouTube. But today's unqualified advice, the topic at hand is pretty much the hardest video that you will ever make on YouTube, pretty much. That's what we're going to be pretty much talking about, and this thing might go off the rails a bit, so just stay with me, but let's get to this thing. The hardest video you ever make, simply put, will be your first video to begin with, right? Because going into your first video, right, is the fact that you have no idea who the fuck you are. I mean, like, seriously, when you make your first video, you either have a lot of ambition, which actually might come to actually save you in the long run, and I'll get to that soon, but when you actually have your first video, you have so much ambition, you have so much just like inspiration and motivation to kind of just hit the video. And I think that's also sometimes when your video is actually creatively or the inside personally probably at its best, but your video itself is pretty much going to be at its worst. A lot of people kind of hate their first video, and that's okay if your video kind of sucks, because if your video is kind of, obviously a hit right off the bat, then there's no way really to go but down. You have to learn from your shitty mistakes from the beginning in order to kind of grow into a YouTuber. If you look at some of the earlier videos that I've done, I wouldn't recommend them. But if you would have looked at some of the early videos that I've done and then coming to now, there's a big difference as to like how I act compared to then. You see some of the blueprint of me in those earlier videos, but it changes as time goes on. Like, this hat wasn't really that much of a thing. Just simply put, the way I kind of speak wasn't really that much of a thing. Because going into your first video, everybody has ideas as to what they want to do, but none of those ideas of what they want to do is actually their ideas. People want to be what is working. People want to be other people that have, trends or formulas that are working for them. So when you make your first video, a lot of people are going to think it to your head, and it gets in your head, and it just clogs your entire focus point to the point where you don't understand who you are in the video, because you want to be, you want to take ideas from Johns, you want to take ideas from Stuckman, you want to take ideas from PewDiePie, you want to take ideas from IGN, you want to take ideas from WatchMojo, or whatever it may be. You want to take ideas from, Superwoman. You want to take all these ideas from these other people, but you don't actually have ideas from your own self. And the first video, and most likely the first few months or even a year, you might not find your footing for quite some time, and it's going to really suck. Because there's going to be a time where you kind of make your first shit, and then give or take, everybody has this like inside yelling voice. It's like a deep, quiet voice, but for some reason it's exciting and it's slightly loud, because most likely in the first few months, you're probably not going to tell your parents that you're on YouTube. So you want to keep your voice as quiet as possible so that they don't knock on the fucking door. Because when they knock on the door and they interrupt your video, that is the worst fucking feeling. It's like somebody kicking you right in the nuts and just be like, I'm done. I'm not even going to do it anymore. But the first video is always kind of the hardest thing, particularly because of the fact, as I said, you have no idea what you want to be. You're so invested into kind of being the YouTuber lifestyle because you've seen so many of these other people, and that's great. Motivation can be found in any sort of place, but at the end of the day, you have to find motivation from yourself and not from anybody else. Like, my brother or whatever it may be wants to get in on this YouTube thing. And I thought, all right, sure, that's great. But if you're only, because he said, I'm watching some of these motivational speakers, and that's great and whatnot, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with watching motivational speakers, but at the same time, the best person to motivate your ass to do anything is yourself, right? And that just comes to the point to begin with. Now, when it comes to your first video just to begin with, you have to, I think, plan out certain things if you want the honest truth. Like, I didn't know this. You have to plan some things out. What do you want to do? What are you good at? And try to focus that. Now, don't let this get into your head when you actually go into your first video. Do not let the fact that everybody is doing a bunch of videos at any second of the day. Because if you think about that, you are never going to finish a video, and you are never going to even try to go forward past probably 3 or 4, uploads just to begin with. Like, YouTube's very difficult when you realize just how many videos get uploaded a day. Nobody's going to tell you that shit. But that is a simple fucking truth. There's a lot of things uploaded, and there may be 16 people doing the exact same thing you're doing. But at the same time, if you believe what you're doing, then it can actually work. Video quality wise, your videos will suck. Creativity wise, you will probably be at your highest peak right now when you actually make your first video, because you have so many ideas kind of forming. Hopefully they're your ideas, but nonetheless, that is probably the most most creative fulfilling time period is when you're doing your first few videos, just to begin with. Now, eventually you'll probably get to a point where you don't even want to look at your first few videos, but maybe you're about 5-6 years in, and you're starting to get a little bit lazy. We've all had that YouTube laziness that's kind of going around like the flu in New York City, or at least the East Coast. That shit just kind of happens. And then to me, I think your first video not only serves a purpose to kind of show your growth, but also to kind of give you back that motivation just to begin with. When you go back to your first video, right? Brace with me. When you go back to your first video, it's horrible, it's garbage, but as I said, it's where you have the most creative mindset going forward. Like, that's where you just like, I want to do everything every single day. I want to have a whole bunch of videos. I want to do this, I want to do that. But then you fast forward 5 years, you're not the same guy. You don't have a whole bunch of videos coming out. You're uploading shit maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, who knows? So to me, I always look back to the first few videos to me, because it shows that guy was on point. That guy had videos. Maybe not the best stuff, but he was consistent. He was the guy that was determined. So when you lose that fire, your first few videos, you go back to that. You look at it. You examine it. Try to remember back to the time where you actually was that person. Man or woman, we don't discriminate here. But that is the point what I'm trying to make. Your first video is always going to be tough. It is 100% going to be the biggest piece of shit probably you have on your channel. No doubt. But don't delete it. Don't be somebody that's a pussy that's deletes your shit, and now I'm going to get demonetized because I said pussy twice. But that's the thing. Don't delete your first few videos. Watch them, examine them, see your growth, see what works, see what didn't work, see how far you have come, because there's so many people that delete their shit because they're ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of it. My earlier videos, are they garbage? Yes, they are garbage, because I did not know what the fuck I wanted to be on this channel. The first few videos are always going to be difficult, as I said countless times in this video. But I think you have to realize that you have to essentially stay consistent, especially at the very beginning. It's going to be probably the most fun because it seems like a very new risk. It's a risk, and the risk, it can always be dangerous or rewarding. But at the same time, it's also very fulfilling. Win, lose, or draw. And I think that's the best way to kind of approach some certain videos. Don't go into YouTube because, Jeremy Johns motivated me. And I hate to bring up his name again, but just a common YouTuber that comes to my name. It comes to my head, essentially. Don't, do it because, Superwoman or, Jenna Marbles or whatever it may be, you want to do what they do. Don't do what they do. Do what you do, You can't, because when you're doing your first thing, you want to say, I want to be like him. But what you should be saying, fuck him, I want to be me. That's what you got to do. Now, whether I have similar comparisons to other people, so be it. But when it comes to like inspiration-wise, I don't look at anybody for really full-on inspiration. And that sounds kind of cocky, but I don't be like, we kind of have similar styles. I don't look at anybody to kind of have the same style. And I said this in another video, which is, YouTube style video. You can look it up in the same playlist. But it's just a simple case. You have to kind of find motivation for yourself. And the best way to find motivation, to me, is always from the first video. Keep that first video. Use it as inspiration when you actually are either feeling lazy or you're feeling like there's, times to get rough. There's a lot of times, and I shit you not, you're going to feel like you want to quit. And there's been a lot of times where I've seen it. I've seen a couple of buddies of mine quit last year, or they just stopped doing everything. They constantly keep on deleting their videos. And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You guys can push forward. If anything, you guys might be better than me. But there's a difference between people that have great quality videos, but they're not consistent. Or people that have overall the more focus point. Like I said, your video quality will suck, but if you have the passion for film or TV or games or whatever it may be, coming through that fucking screen, you will gain subscribers. You will gain views to begin with. Now, it may not be fast. It may not be quick. And if it is, then, you know, that might be a bad thing for you. But I think it will pay off in the long run, at least in some sort of thing. Because if you're going into this wanting to make money, that's not a problem. But if you're expecting to make money right off the bat, then boy, you are going to be broke very, very long. Because let's be real here. There's a couple of videos that I've had with a bunch of views or whatever it may be, and that just made chump change. Chump change. So don't go into this shit expecting money. Don't expect to be famous or whatever. Either you do it for passion and you do it for just kind of like a fun hobby or a little bit of therapy. I kind of compare it to a little bit like therapy to get some of your frustrations out. But that's what it is. I think you should always cherish the first video because it's like a first child. You know, that's your first thing that you ever put out. Or your first few videos, your first few months will always be the most special because, you know, that was a very innocent time where it was just fun. It wasn't about subscribers or uploading very quickly. Once you get into the trenches of YouTube, about a year, 2 years, you start to feel a little bit like YouTube's pretty much corrupted you, right? Like you just feel like now you're playing YouTube's game. At first, you felt like you were fighting against the system when you're in the first few months or like your first few videos or whatever it may be. You feel like you're against the system. But then once you get into it, gain more subscribers, then you are the system. You're playing the system. That's how that shit kind of works. And it really does kind of change your perspective, just like how dirty YouTube can actually be in both a good way and bad ways. You know, YouTube kind of fucks you over if you're a smaller channel, but if you're Logan Paul, hell, you're still here. So it is what it is. Comment, subscribe, and like. I'm Chris Smith. Share this video if you can. That shit can actually be very helpful. I'm Chris Smith, and I'm signing out.